Hello, everybody, and welcome to a freezing cold edition of the Jim Cornette Experience. But don't worry, because I'm already hot. I'm pissed off. I'll tell you about this in a second, because this is the second time I've had to do this introduction. But more on that later. In the meantime, today on the Cultcast, stupid things that stupid people say, our Outlaw Mud Show update, a new segment on the program, Point Counterpoint, my new favorite wrestler in the whole wide world of sports, and our guest today, a WWE Hall of Famer, many-time NWA World Tag Team Champion. He is a noun or an adverb, or he's a phrase in wrestling terminology now. Instead of moves like Jagger, it's selling like Ricky Morton. From the Rock and Roll Express, Ricky Morton, to talk about old-time wrestling today and a whole lot more. And yes, it's cold in Louisville, but I must introduce the man that pissed me off. He is Hawaiian Bryan, the podcasting lion, the king of the Arcadian Vanguard Podcast Network, Mr. Co-host to you, Swammy's pappy, the post office playboy, Susie's favorite boy, the proprietor of the French Toast Chateau, the Marconi of podcasting, the great Bryan Last, Mr. Perfectionist.
Aloha, Jim. A pleasure to be here once again for another exciting episode of The Experience. I have to ask you, with Ricky Morton being here, why is everyone named Gibson called Hoot?
You're just not going to sell this whole attack I've made on you, but the Hoot Gibson was an old-time movie star, an old-time Western star. He was in all the serials. Didn't you never watch the Beverly Hillbillies when you were a kid?
A little bit, not too much.
Hoot Gibson was a famous Western movie star, and somehow, about the same time that Ricky became Punky, Robert became Hoot. At least to those of us in the inner circle.
And then in ICW, there was an undercard guy, Hoot Gibson.
Well, yeah, and that was just, I think, a rib on that fucking guy, poor fella. But, but they got it from the same place. But anyway.
Why are you pissed off this week, Jim?
Well, no, because I got all the way through that whole introduction, and then you're modulating. You're breaking up. You're breaking like I'm fucking Neil Armstrong calling in from the goddamn moon. This is one small step for,
That's what it was like. It was like you're doing your introduction like, Hawaiian Bryan, Susie. That's all I started hearing.
I sounded fine to me, and you sounded fine to me. I don't know why you couldn't extend me the courtesy of having me sound fine to you.
Well, we'll see how it works out from this point going forward.
It's cold here. In Louisville, Kentucky, at noontime in the middle of the day as we're recording this, it's 5 fucking degrees, and the wind chill is supposedly, if I was to venture outside, I might know, but I'm taking from the TV reports, 15 to 20 degrees. 15 to 20 degrees below zero. Fuck. That's unacceptable. I expect something to be done about this by tomorrow.
How many deblees is it usually this time of year?
It's usually a lot more deblees than this. I think actually the normal temperature is supposed to be about 40, right? The average high. And by this weekend, it's going to be 60 degrees and it's going to fucking rain again. Like we aren't already soggy and frozen and messy and muddy. And you're taking your life in your hands every time you go out of the house. And we know whose fault it is. Because the dimwit, did you see the tweet? Dimwit looks out the front window of the White House, and I'm sure that he knows better than this, even he, but at the same time, it shows the level of intelligence that he thinks his fucking cult followers have, that they buy it, because they do buy it, because they're fucking stupid. All the snow and the fucking cold and everything. Hey, where's that global warming? We need some more of that to come back. You fucking idiot. As you poison the planet and everybody in it. I come up with the fucking name finally. If Donald Trump had in the late 50s started a fucking doo-wop group, right? And they were on the street corner there in New York doing the doo-wop like the doo-woppers do. Benedict Donald and the Trader Tots.
All right.
What do you think? And he could add his little fucking buck-tooth fucking shyster kids, the Thurston Shitbag the Third and Douchebag Von Fuckface out there doing the doo-wop. Benedict Donald and the Trader Tots. I'm telling you, they would have hit the charts.
Okay.
Well, you're usually a musical kind of guy. I thought you'd tear it apart and talk about how they were pitchy, dog, and couldn't carry a fucking tone.
How they were pitchy, dog? Did you call me dog?
No, I said, you tell me that. No, they were too pitchy for me, dog. You're the music expert.
I've never used dog like that ever.
Well,
I use dog in much different ways.
You use dog completely different ways. Ladies and gentlemen, speaking of, okay, let's go right into the program. Stupid things that stupid people say. And I did, once again, I'm innocently looking at my Twitter, right, this morning. And somebody said, Cornette, what do you think about this? And it's the caption of the video is basically it's Omega. It's the doll guy. But the caption was something to the effect of Omega explains the 9-year-old, and then it dots. Obviously, they no more room for it. So I think he is going to try to give an explanation for why he had that competitive wrestling match with that 9-year-old girl on video that lives to this day, and it's why I hate him, among the other reasons, including the dolls.
Where is she today? Is anyone ever talking to her? She must be like a teenager now. I wonder what she thinks about the whole.
She's gone underground. She's in the federal witness protection program from having to suffer this indignity of this thing. Anyway, so I gotta, it's like a 4-minute thing or whatever. I gotta hear, he's going to defend this somehow. I want to hear what in his twisted mind and brain, if there is one there, that he somehow justifies this happening. Well, then I click on it, and it's not the 9-year-old girl that he wrestled. He's defending the 9-year-old boy that the Young Bucks wrestled. It sounds like they're a bunch of Catholic priests when I think about it, but they didn't actually wrestle the 9-year-old boy. They double super kicked the 9-year-old kid for his birthday, which is what led to the aggressions and transgressions and progressions and aggression between me and the Bucks. Was I commented on how they just hit their fucking supposed finish on a 9-year-old kid in a ring at a show for his birthday. So he's defending this. So do you know what his rationale was for why this was? Basically, he went into this for about 2 minutes in detail, why this was okay. And why he couldn't understand why I was upset about it, because he was talking specifically about how I hated it so bad. But it was okay. Why?
Did he use the defense of my employer gave me a role to play?
No, that was the other cretin.
Oh.
This one, he said, but it you don't understand, but it was safe. It was safe. Those guys, they can look like they knock your head off and you'll never feel it. So, the kid was perfectly, I can understand a concern, but the kid was perfect. Like the reason why that I was so vehemently angry about the issue is because I was worried about the fucking kids' safety.
Come on.
I was worried about fucking business's safety. The only way, if you're going to do it, the only way you can do it is knock the fucking kid's teeth down his throat. Have him carried off on a stretcher, which is why I mentioned they shouldn't have done it at all. because the kid was not carried out on a stretcher and it looked good. And the kid actually took a good bump. And so I've come up with what I think might be a learning tool that even these simpletons whose parents fucked in the flower bed because they're blooming idiots can understand this. I'm not worried about the fucking child. He shouldn't have been in there. It's a case of bad parenting. The parenting was already suspect in this case. If you're going to let two adult men throw super kicks, regardless of whether they're artists at it or not, at your 9-year-old kid's fucking face for his birthday, fuck you anyway, right? However, let's say that Arn Anderson, because, everybody says Arn Anderson, that spine buster, right? Arn Anderson's spine buster was state of the art. Would you agree?
Absolutely.
Okay, now in your mind's eye, folks, picture Arn Anderson shoots off the Undertaker, hits him with that fucking spine buster, bam, gets up, and the Undertaker sits up. And everybody goes, oh, shit, look at that. Fuck, that Undertaker's fucking nothing hurts him. Goddamn, Arn planted him, and he's invulnerable. It doesn't demean the move because it gets Undertaker over and you understand it visually and mentally, cognitively. Okay, I can buy this. Arn Anderson, same spine buster, shoots off another wrestler, just a regular professional wrestler. same size as him, athlete, fucking 250 pounds, whatever, hits him with that spine buster, bam! That fucking guy sells it. Oh, it's like he's knocked the breath out of him, and he's selling his back, and he's holding his fucking ribs, and he's rolling over, and you see it on his face. You go, God damn, Arn planted that motherfucker. Arn's a fucking badass. It gets Arn over. And it also gets the fucking move over because you go, God damn, say what you want about fucking wrestling, whether you know it's a performance or not. Arn Anderson hitting the spine buster on a motherfucker looks pretty goddamn convincing if they sell it. Especially because, as we know, the doctors say it's the equivalent of a 35-mile-an-hour rear-end fucking collision. That's according to the medical professionals. That's not just me spouting off. So the guy sells it like, oh, and it gets the move over and he gets Arn over. Arn shoots the same guy off and hits him with the fucking spine buster. And bam, but the guy, he sells a little bit and he comes right up to his feet. And in your mind, and the people go, oh, God damn, boy, that spine buster's a cool move. But, you know, those guys are pretty big. I don't know if I want any of that. Then Arn shoots off a 135-pound female wrestler. Same move, bam. She sells it. And now you're like, oh, God damn, that girl's pretty tough. But, you know, I guess the ring is padded because, I mean, come on, if Arn planted her like that, but boy, I wouldn't, you know, I wonder what that feels like. Maybe I could, you know. And then Arn Anderson shoots off a fucking 9-year-old child and hits the same spine buster. And whether the kid sells it or not, unless he's immediately hooked up to a resuscitator and rushed off in an ambulance and pronounced dead on arrival, everybody's going, God damn, see, I told you so. At wrestling, you know, I mean, it looks good, but, you know, the mat's padded. And, well, look, even a kid, they take those moves so they don't really get hurt. Now you've gone so far as to planning in people's mind that nobody even gets hurt when they really even do, and that anybody can take this. And then the fans are, which is what has happened. All the fans out there are flocking to wrestling schools because they're going, wow, that looks like fun. What the kid did, I'd like to do that. I could take that spine buster, even if when you actually got hit with that spine buster, chances are it'd probably fucking knock your fucking kids dizzy that haven't been born yet. They think anybody can do this. You have systematically devalued exactly what's going on, and it's worse when it looks good. Because then they go, see, it looks like it knocks your head off, but the kid was unscathed. And then the next time they throw a super kick, it's a fucking potato, knocks a guy's teeth down his fucking throat, and everybody thinks, oh, it's a blood capsule. Fuck, idiots. Anyway, would you like to take Arn Anderson's spine buster, Bryan, last?
Not particularly.
But at least,
but I don't know, is it safe? That's my number one qualification.
Here's the thing, it's safe, and it'll knock the fuck out of you and give you a second thought about getting back up for a little while, especially if you don't know how to take it. And because Arn, that's the thing, when you have a guy who knows how to do something and he knows how to guide your body and take care of it, he's not going to drop you on your head. He's not going to break your neck. You're not going to have an arm or a leg trapped underneath and broken unless you're just a arms and legs sack of wet hammers fuck. You're not going to be busted open. You're not going to have an injury. It's going to keep you out, but it's going to knock the fuck out of you because it's a good firm fucking bump. And you got to be used to taking bumps and know how to fucking and know what the fuck's coming. Because a lot of times when this catches some of these people by surprise, that's where you get injuries. Anyway, but no, it's not dangerous. But that's the point. That's the art of the thing. That's why you do have to be an athlete and you do have to know what you're doing. Because night after night and time after time of a 35-mile-an-hour rear end collision, which is what a flat back bump especially at that fucking velocity is, which is all the more reason not to convince people that children and small pets can perform this shit. Not to mention the inanimate objects. Anyway, speaking of inanimate objects, I'm going to do my own segue. Guess what's back, baby? Burger towels. Burger towels are back at JimCornette.com. As you recall, with the unprecedented demand, we ran out before Christmas. I said, we're not going to get them back in by Christmas because they're custom made, so we're going to take them down How can we miss you if you won't go away? People been asking, people been emailing, the cards and letters have been coming in, the telegrams. I got a telegram from Tham Muchnick in St. Louis saying, when is the burger towels coming back, baby? And the answer is finally now. Yes, and they are already selling once again at a brisk clip. But burger towels are back at jimcornette.com. Click on collectibles. Also, we're down to below 30 on the action figures until this summer. And maybe never if we piss China off too bad. So get the last remaining action figures because you never know about these things with the current administration. Also, the Midnight Express American Cancer Society 35th anniversary reunion photo is selling briskly. We still have them available, so you haven't capitalized on Jeremy Bagley's challenge yet. Remember, he's going to give another, goddamn, what was it, $150 to the American Cancer Society when we sell out of these pictures. And lots more fun at jimcornette.com, folks. And you know where the best place is, Brian, while I'm on the subject, to bring a burger towel?
Where's that?
Oh, for God, you're not even trying now when I'm giving you these great segues. I mean, that was a layup of a segue. Of course, to have a beef with me in Chicago.
That's not a burger.
Well, but it's still a towel. It's a great place to sop up your mess. When I make you have these messy, drippy, greasy palms, and you need something to wipe all of my goodness juice off of when you have a beef with me in Chicago at C2E2, and everybody knows what's going on here by now, obviously. Not only will I be there at C2E2 March 22nd through the 24th at the Cornette's Collectibles booth, meeting everyone, kissing babies, fondling women, the whole 9 yards, but also on Saturday, March 23rd, it'll be the live Jim Cornette experience, Have a Beef with Me, as part of C2E2 After Dark, a separately ticketed event. You don't need C2E2 tickets. This one is for everybody. Come one, come all. I'd advise you, obviously for the minors in the audience, there will be some strong language. But tinyurl.com/corny in Chicago. You made it, Brian. It'll take them there. Everybody's a VIP. You get the stand-up meltdown. You get Chicago stories. I'm already doing my research for the Chicago wrestling stories, mine and many others from throughout the years. But also you get free 8x10 signed, a photo op with me, some hangout time, and a classic Chicago Italian beef sandwich with you, Brian Last, with your northern frame of mind. Did not even know what it was, but it's filled with goodness and greasiness, and that's what you'll have on your hands after I get finished with you in Chicago. Goodness and greasiness all over your hands and your faces, ladies and gentlemen. $65 all in for that experience. You can't get it anywhere else.
I know a woman in Nova Scotia who charges $100 for that kind of experience.
I think, was it Halifax or maybe Newfoundland? It was a Newfoundland. Yeah, I'd remember her anywhere. Anyway, so yes, that's part of C2E2. But can I give an update? I've got an email from one of the listeners. Am I too far away from the microphone now?
No, I think you're okay.
You got me so verklempt. I've got this new audio apparatus. I've got an Outlaw Mud Show update. We said on a program a couple of weeks ago that one of the reasons why the commission is so strict here, not just because of Ian Rotten and all the hardcore dumb fucks, because just these Outlaw Mud shows of some promotion here in Kentucky actually licensed a kid in a wheelchair and then did an angle where they turned him over and he was legitimately in a fucking wheelchair. And I didn't have all the facts and figures. Now I do, by cracky. Right here. It's not even on heavy cardstock, but I can read it. It is from Randall Smith, who's the promoter down at United Pro Wrestling down there. This was not the promotion in question. I know Randall. He's okay. He's A-okay. He gets one of these. You can't see it, but it's one of these, an A-okay thing. But he remembers the incident. And this is one of the reasons why when you have these outlaw mud shows, poorly regulated, piss poorly pre-planned, involving amateurs that are in over their heads, this kind of shit you get, and then you get heat from the government. Hi, Jim. I had a little more information on the wheelchair incident you talked about on last week's show. I'm not sure when the incident you were referring to happened, but there was an incident, and this was the one. Back around 2008 in Brownsville, Kentucky, with a young man in a wheelchair, the promoter decided it would be a great idea to license this young man because he always wanted to be a wrestler. It was his dream. The young man was in a wheelchair due to spina bifida. So not only, and this was before that the state, as we mentioned, started checking who they were licensing, because they just once again, it was like if you applied for a wrestling license, they'd give it to you. And then all these outlaw groups got in and abused the principle. And so now they contact everybody. They require references, et cetera, as they should. And because of shit like this. But anyway, he said a great idea to license this guy, wanted to be a wrestler, spina bifida, in the wheelchair. So not only did the state license someone in a wheelchair, but he also had an uncontrollable illness that prevented him from physical activity. I was at the event and actually left when I heard what they had planned. Even after stating my complaints and concerns, they decided it would be great and everything would go okay. Needless to say, the young man was turned over in his wheelchair by the heel. Even worse was that this was the third or fourth time they had actually put the kid on the show. They had debuted him. Listen to this. This is the kicker. They had debuted him a month or so prior as an enforcer to make sure the heel manager didn't interfere in a match.
Come on.
I swear to God. And I understand this is a kid in a wheelchair. And there's a difference between Make-A-Wish, where The Rock or Triple H or whatever playfully lays down, and the kid, it's a feel-good moment, when actually doing physical angles, turning kids over in wheelchairs because it's their dream to be on the wrestling show. Just because I can cut my own ear off doesn't make me Van Gogh. That may be the next shirt I have to do, just because it bears repeating. But yeah, anyway, I got a segue for you now, pal. How about this? You know what's coming up, don't you?
I don't.
Valentine's Day.
The women love that day.
We may take that sound effect and play that at inopportune moments on the show. The sound you just made. As a matter of fact, mark that down in your little black book there.
I have my book.
But no, Valentine's Day is a time where all of us, and I know we do have an amazing and eclectic variety of female listeners. I have now found that out. I thought that certainly to God, no women would care about the things we talk about, but there's a bunch of them out there, and some hot ones too. I don't want to mention anybody's name. But anyway, the point is, I don't want to leave anybody out. I don't want to piss anybody off. Maybe that's it. But usually us guys, around about February 12th, we say, okay, it's Valentine's Day, right? We got to do something coming up. We got 2 days. And by then all the reservations are gone and all the cards are out of and the shit's just picked over and everything. And generally you look like a fucking goof, right? So that's why, as your leader of the cult of Cornette, I want to save you people some strife and consternation for this very important holiday coming up on February 14th. Don't wait till the 12th, but it's easy. It's not only easy, but it's fun and good for you, because I got a way out of this thing, guys. And not only is this going to get you over on Valentine's Day, but also it may get you some. I'm not sure. I don't want to be quoted on that, but I'm going to give you some advice. There's a reason why candy and flowers are basically the gift du jour of a Valentine's Day type of thing, because they always work, especially when it's good flowers and good candy. So we have partnered this year, Bryan, and you heard about the big press release we had with Sherry. We've partnering this year with Sherry's Berries to save you guys some money and bail you out of a lot of trouble that'll save you even more, because divorce lawyers these days are goddamn ridiculous. But anyway, Sherry's Berries, remember we've talked about them on the program here before. Strawberries dipped in milk chocolate, dark chocolate, white chocolate, which is my favorite, chocolatey goodness all the way around, all the colors of the rainbow of chocolate. She's going to fall in love with every bite of them, but they've got the toppings, the chocolate chips, the hearts, the glitter sprinkles, or grittier sprinkles if you choose. I choose the glitter sprinkles, but decadence. It's all decadent stuff. But anyway, so here's the thing. You get the Sherry's berries, and then you set them down in front of a candlelight dinner if you're staying home, or a night on the town if you're going out, or you set them down in front of a bouquet of flowers. And did I mention flowers, by the way? Because not only can you get the berries, but you can also get the flowers in the same place and take care of that too. And Bryan, if I was to ask you, what price would this be worth to save you the time and the trouble of not only of selecting and choosing these presents, but the extreme level of trouble that you would have if you don't choose them at all or don't have them in time? Would it be worth $49.99 to somebody to just be rid of that and have it taken care of? Even $39?
I was going to say $100 just because it's peace of mind knowing I won't have to deal with it.
It's like buying insurance.
Yeah.
But not even $29.99 though. Folks, $19.99, you can get some berries. The Valentine's gift of her dreams at the price of your dreams, starting at just $19.99 plus shipping and handling for the berries. And if you want to do it up, and I suggest you do, and believe me, this will pay dividends in the long run, a dozen red roses for $19.99 on top of the berries with no extra shipping. That's what we can do for you here today at the Cult of Cornette headquarters by going to Berries. That's berries.com, BERRIES.com. You click on a little microphone gimmick and enter the code JCE for the Jim Cornette Experience. And that's how I am not only saving you money, but time and trouble and potential legal proceedings from a divorce that Stephen P. New would not handle. So, ladies and gentlemen, berries.com, Sherry's berries, strawberries, chocolate, flowers. What the fuck? I'm going to get some for Harley. I've already got some for Stace. I'm going to get some for Harley because it's a good thing. Well, not the chocolate for the dog, I guess.
Yeah, that would not be a good thing. Yeah.
Wonder if white chocolate. Well, nevertheless, hey, it's going to save you a lot of trouble, folks. So I've saved you money again. I do this for the cult members because I want to make sure that everybody lives a prosperous life. Free to pursue happiness however they wish.
I want to order some for myself because I have no faith that Suzanne will get me any.
Well, wait a minute.
That sounds delicious.
Wait a minute. Well, yes, but here's the thing. You're supposed to get her I guess it's equal rights these days. Is it acceptable procedure now for the young lady to get the man the candy?
I don't know what's acceptable or not, but I know that every time I buy her something, she gets mad that I end up eating it anyway. So why not just reverse the whole thing and just get it for me?
You got a point there. And a jar of peanut butter, too.
Whoa.
Because I eat the peanut butter and Stacy. Anyway, you can get over on Valentine's Day for Sherry's Berries. Should we go to a new segment on the program? This may be the first and last time we have this segment, but we have Point Counterpoint today on the program. Real quickly. Because, no, you heard, once again, it was a week or two ago, we were talking about the oppression caused by religion and that whole thing, and the Catholic high school in Covington, and the poor old Indian fella, and the black Israeli Muslimites, and all the other folks involved and everything. At the root of all evil and oppression and sadness and et cetera, was the point, is religion and religious teachings and these religious schools. We have two schools of thought on this. From the viewers, the listeners. Jade writes, "Hey, Jim, I really enjoyed this week's experience. I'm from Australia, and we don't seem to have the evangelical crazies that you guys have in America. In Australia and England, religion is in a decline. Non-religious will be our country's biggest religion in a few years. I wish America would be the same. You guys seem to have more crazies. Just wanted to let you know, hope is not lost, and it won't be the dark ages around the rest of the world." Well, the rest of the world is going to have to keep the fucking planet safe while we're over here engaged in all of our lunacy. Apparently now, that's where the United States is sitting. But there is a counterpoint to this argument. Would you like to hear that counterpoint, Bryan?
Oh, yeah.
You're about as enthusiastic as a hand job from an undertaker. It's a fucking day. Okay.
So this is from another listener?
This is from another listener. Yes, you've picked up on the premise of the bit rather quickly. Thank you. I have to disagree with you and your comments about God and telling people to kill each other, people, that's just false. It's in the Bible and the law of man not to kill abortion. You are killing a living human being. It's different reasons why people have abortion. As a believer in the Father in heaven and his son Jesus, teach us not to kill anyone, not to steal, commit adultery, don't lie, are a few things that's in the Bible. Some of the things people talk negative about is things that happened thousands of years ago and before Jesus died on the cross for our sins and defended them. And basically, it was people hating people who believed in a different God, parentheses, the devil, went to war with God's people. And yes, they defended themselves like people do to this day. It's American law not to kill and steal, same as the Bible. The only thing who believes preach the gospel and ask people not to kill and steal, not to lay down with the same sex. But the true message is we all sin. We all do things we should not. And the only answer is Jesus. But you and others has a choice to believe or not to, but people put down the Father in heaven, the true God, that they would believe a man about evolution. A fish came out of the sea with legs and monkeys evolved to man. But that sounds right, and every specimen they found to prove evolution turned out to be a fake. My question, where did the fish and monkeys come from to do this? They don't explain that, or who created the organisms and bacteria. And last, if science is right about evolution, why has it not happened since? Why monkeys and humans haven't evolved again? No one knows that answer because evolution is fake lies to keep people away from God. Read the Bible, you will find your answers.
Wow.
And there's a persuasive counterpoint, ladies and gentlemen. I think very plainly articulated there for everyone to hear. Perhaps we should, instead of making comment on this, perhaps we should let the listeners vote. If you voted for point A, the Australian fellow who said maybe we can get rid of this stuff pretty soon, if you're on his side, then press A now. But if you're on counterpoint side with the guy who thinks we should get back to that Bible because of the fishes with legs, then press B now. Do we have the game show music we can play while they're making their answers?
I can't. The shotgun blast going off from every English teacher that just listened to that blowing their brains out is killing their game show music.
Yes, I'm sorry, that was Shitstain blowing his brains out. But anyway, that was a very persuasive argument. Well, let's move on here. Real quickly, and I know I want to talk about what you're doing this week, and we got to get Ricky on the phone, but I have a new favorite wrestler in the whole wide world. I will give you 74 guesses, and you ain't going to come up with it.
Okay, that's promising. Is it someone nationally known?
Is it bigger than a bread box? Yes, I would say that now at this point. Yes. Oh, this is going to be fun. I didn't even know we were going to do this bit, but yes, yeah. I'm going to do the old fucking, quiz show thing here.
Is the wrestler you're speaking of a man?
No.
It is a woman.
God damn you.
Is the wrestler you're speaking of working for WWE?
No.
No. Is the wrestler you are talking about someone you have worked with in the past?
No.
No. Is it Tessa Blanchard?
God damn you. God damn you. As soon as you came up with that, folks, we did not pre-plan this, and I just launched into it. But as soon as you came up with, why did you ask if it was a woman? Why would you have thought that?
Because you were saying I would never guess it. And I think that's one of those things that people wouldn't think they would hear. You go, oh, that Aja Kong is really awesome.
See, you're right. I thought I'd have you there. All right. No, Tessa Blanchard. I mean, I have met her in Charlotte a couple years ago at one of the banquets. And I've seen her a couple of times just on, at smaller shows, but I haven't sought out her work. But I was flipping the channels by, but I saw one of the replays of the WoW show on Access. And why the fuck not? I'm going to hit this button. And it was right at the beginning. And I got to see her do the angle with that Santana Garrett, and they did a video on her, and then she had a match. And at first, let me say, everybody knows that I've known Dave McClain since he was one of Bruiser's photographers in 1976, right? I bought pictures from him. I never liked Glow because it was a parody of wrestling, and it just was silly, and it was the 80s stuff. And I thought, oh God, I hated the thought of people seeing it, not because it was women wrestling, because it was silly women wrestling. And a few of them actually transitioned into the business. So I'm not maligning everybody. But the point is, it was so I'm thinking, well, this has got to be more serious. It is more serious. However, my advice to Dave McClain, I just saw him somewhere at a Fan Fest thing last year or whenever. Get off the air. A 60-year-old man in a tuxedo being way too hokey like 80s WWF television is not what these girls need. They need a girl about 10 years older than them, dressed up like the network sportscasters that cover football or basketball or baseball or any other sport. The only reason I mention the age is just because that's usually, since the athletes in every sport are usually in their 20s, especially if they're female, and the announcers are generally a little older, it just looks right. But play it a little straighter, because these girls are trying to play it straight. There was a level of hokiness on some of the stuff, but everything Tessa Blanchard does is fucking gold. I'm joining her fan club. The promos were fucking great. The facial expression, she sounds like she means what she says. She looks like $1 million in the ring. It's just the movement. Her work is fucking excellent. She works like a man. And that is a compliment. And I'm sorry, once again, if it's sexist, but the guys who actually know how to work and people in the business will know what I'm talking about. Sometimes women's bodily movements are different in executing moves that men usually do, and it looks different. But she moves like a man. You know what I'm trying to say. And the kicks and shit. But also, she looks beautiful, but she doesn't look fake beautiful, like she went to the right plastic surgeon or somebody's been doing her hair for 5 hours. She looks beautiful like she really is, and she's just legitimate. She seems real. I think the best way they could continue with their program is to have a Tessa Blanchard match followed by a Tessa Blanchard angle, followed by a Tessa Blanchard video, and then come back to a replay of a Tessa Blanchard match from the week before. But yes, thumbs up, in case you haven't noticed.
Sounds like 84 Mid-Atlantic. All you want is Tully. Everything else on that show is awful.
Well, and and here's the thing. I told Tully when I met her, and I told him, I said, I don't know how this was fucking happened, but she's beautiful and looks like you at the same time. And I don't see how that was fucking possible. But she's carried it off. So anyway, cheers to Tessa Blanchard. What are you doing this week?
Real quick, because I know we have a guest that's just waiting for us right now as we get to the time that we are recording. A couple of things I want to mention. This week on the Super Studcast for patrons of the Studcast at patreon.com/Studcast, only $2.99, you get part 2 of the Knoxville Wrestling War. We finish up the story of Ron having Southeastern Wrestling under attack in 1979, dealing with it and eventually leaving Knoxville, the bloodiest wrestling war you could think of, just completely destructive, destroyed a town, never fully rebuilt itself back, even with the heights of Smoky Mountain Wrestling.
I can testify to that. It never came back fully.
So hear about that and so much more. Once again, the Super Studcast at patreon.com/Studcast. And of course, the 605 Superpodcast, the Mothership. Oh, that was an old school one. I like that. Well, you and your sound effects over there. It's like doing a show with Ernie Kovacs.
I'll have you know I'm like that guy in Police Academy. I do it with my own mouth.
Michael Winslow?
You wouldn't believe the things I can do with my mouth that most people don't know about.
I know a woman up in Nova Scotia who could talk a little bit more about that.
All right, now, don't go back to the same well twice.
Well, let's move on here with the show. Once again, I want to mention episode 96 of the Super Podcast is now in production. The Top 10 Pandemonium Theater, which will be a memorable one. Trust me on that. And the return of In the News with Jim Cornette.
In the news, oh boy.
Well, we're not going to use that music, I guarantee you that.
Well, all right, well, you ingrate.
Hear more, we get to go over classic wrestling articles, me and Jim Cornette talking about these classic stories and how they look to a modern eye. It's always fascinating. Hear that and so much more. Every single episode is available for free in the archive at 605pod.com, or of course, you could subscribe on iTunes, Stitcher, Podcast Addict, or wherever it is that you find your favorite podcasts. The 605 Super Podcast, the Mothership.
All right, well, I think now it might be time to save this program by getting some talent on here. Let's hook up the magic phone machine, my boy. And without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, I mentioned at the top of the program, he's become a saying in professional wrestling, whether it's an adverb, an adjective, a noun, or whatever. Instead of moves like Jagger, it's selling like Ricky Morton. He's in the WWE Hall of Fame. He's been the NWA World Tag Team Champion so many times that I think he's got the belt tattooed on his waist. And he continues to wrestle and train people today, and he is the Rock and Roll Express's Ricky Morton. Ricky, thank you for being here.
Well, Jimmy, I don't know what to say after that intro, buddy. I mean, dadgum. Thank you, man, for having me on your show.
I try to give the big intros. I try to give the big intros so we can con the people into thinking they're getting something special.
Yeah, but I don't know if I want to talk to you now. I'm too big.
Well, hey, don't renegotiate now. The heck is Austin Idol? What the? Oh, I'm sorry. Anyway, I got to ask.
I got that.
And a few people on the line did, but anyway, I wanted to ask you, because I don't know that I've ever sat down and really asked you a couple of these questions before, because I met you in 1979 when you first came to work for Jerry Jarrett. And obviously I knew your father, Paul Morton, because Paul refereed and carried rings and did everything around the business for years and years. And he had been a referee here in Louisville since I started watching wrestling. But I was still a photographer, and you're, a brand new young rookie. I'm not officially smart. So I didn't just sit down and say, hey kid, where'd you train? Who broke you in? Blah, blah, blah. But when you were a kid, did you like to go to the matches with Paul? Who were you a fan of? How did you get interested in wrestling?
Well, Jimmy, I didn't have a choice because like you said before, my dad pulled the wrestling ring and set it up for Nick Goulas at the time before Jarrett's promotion went in. And that's what we had to do. We had to go with our dad to help put the ring up. It's the only way he could pay the bills. No, you know what? And at that time, that was the Lynn Rossi era. Tojo Yamamoto, Jackie Fargo. He was working for Nick at that time. I remember the Bounty Hunters.
Yeah.
And it was, that was it. You had Bearcat Brown, but my favorite wrestler, I had the original Heavenly Bodies, Don and Al Green.
Everybody was scared. Everybody was scared of Don and Al. Nobody was scared of Don really, but everybody was scared of Al.
Oh yeah, but you know what? I was just like any other young kid in the business. Lynn Rossi was my hero. He was the great baby face for Nick Goulas. He had that body on him years ago, before people, I guess, ever heard of the needle. I don't know what he did, but I was a Lynn Rossi fan. But no, and coming up in the business, I had how I got trained. I got trained by putting the ring up and watching matches every night. And this happened all the time. I mean, Nick run Birmingham and on Mondays and, Nashville on Wednesdays, but always Thursday, Friday, and Saturday, there was a spot show. And that's where my daddy pulled the ring and put them up. And we got in the ring, me and my brothers. And before you know it, my daddy was standing outside of the ring. That ain't the way you do that. That ain't the way you do this. But he said it in the Jimmy Cornette way. But that's how, and then, when I graduated from high school, Jimmy, I worked at a book bindery, and it was so boring. And I said, "To heck with this," and I went down and told Nick Goulas that I've been trained. I remember I had my first match I had my very first match when I was like 14 years old with Ricky Fields down in Pensacola.
Oh my God!
That's because the baby faces had a car wreck coming to the show, and nobody showed up, and that you see what I'm saying? Because everybody was riding together, and it was like, okay, hey Paul, does your kid have trunks? Anything? You know what? It was actually pretty good, and we did really good. Then I was looking for something different in my life, so I went to Nick, and Nick, hired me without me even seeing me in the ring, but then he liked me. You see what I'm saying? I wasn't bad. I was a hell of a lot better than George. So,
well, I remember when, because I guess you came to work for Jarrett in 79. Did you start working for Nick in like 77, 78? Was it a year or two before?
It was, I'm like the end of 76, Jimmy. I was, I sure did. I was just a young kid.
What did you weigh then? Because now, once again, I have to.
What did I weigh then? Probably 165 pounds.
Yeah, because it was very unusual, because now people have gotten used to, anybody any size can be. But at the time, you were probably the smallest body weight. I mean, you still had some height, but you were the smallest body weight full-time pro wrestler, I think, anywhere, at least in the Southeast. And it was because you had that. You were always the great underdog. And when you could get punched in the face and take 3 bumps, and the women would start crying, so your size helped in that respect, that you had that underdog. You always got how to sell.
Well, thank you, Jimmy. But you know what? And I was trying to explain this to Robert the other day. When we first started our feud with you guys, we had to be the luckiest people in the world because, and I'm just going to say this, because people ask me about territories a lot. And I loved Smoky Mountain territory. You know why? Because Jimmy Cornette didn't work, and Jimmy Cornette was a heel manager. But if you understand about territories, because Robert used to, let's go here. I said, no, let's don't go there. I said, because all we're going to do is go somewhere, because baby faces own most of the territories. And it was good to be a heel. And Bill Watts just retired, and he was fixing to say being the small underdog. Well, dadgum, Bill Dundee went down there, and he come back and told me, he says, every baby face they got weighs 350 pounds, yeah. Ugly. And Bill Watts is not working no more. So now it's an opportunity for Robert and I to go that. And plus, didn't y'all go in before we did?
Well, it was actually the same time legitimately, except we did a TV taping before you guys. So we were on TV first, and then they brought y'all in live.
Yeah. And then I think y'all went in and started working with Magnum and Mr. Wrestling too. And then they got y'all ready with them, and we come in, same thing like we did
with the Russians.
But that was what I was trying to say. Yeah. Yes. But you see, being the All-American underdog babyface, and I don't give a dadgum what nobody says. It still works today if you just do it right. But nowadays they don't worry about that. They just worry about ratings. So, I'm waiting for.
That's the thing, is that we had the opportunity, at least when we grew up, watching guys who had learned through experience how to milk people's emotions in the matches, because they were weekly and they had to over and over again to appeal to the same people. So they had to, make it as legitimate as possible. But I remember, once again, I was going back to the size, because, when you started, you were small, but your shit looked good. You knew how to work. And so you used a lot like Rey Mysterio, although it not in terms of his moves, but Rey Mysterio was able to use his size to his advantage psychologically in his matches. And you did the same thing even before you got started in tag team matches. I remember seeing that match you had one night with Lawler in Louisville, where it was the finish of a battle royal. So you guys were the last two, and then you had to have a single match. And they shot the footage to air on television next week, because they were going to involve, the Jimmy Hart and the angle that they were doing. But he beat you his punches look so good straight to the fucking face, but the way you're selling and the body language and you're bouncing, and people genuinely said, they need to stop this. He's going to kill this fucking guy. And then suddenly, there's a point to this. Suddenly something happened. I'm trying to remember what, and Lawler got sprung backwards, and you schoolboyed him 1, 2, 3, and 1, and the place came apart. Your first offensive move in the comeback.
Yeah, I remember that. I was in a little the thing. And listen, if you stop and watch that, right when the match was over, Lawler, now let me tell you, was supposed to get the heat back on me. But I was so excited, I jumped up and ran out of the ring.
Yeah. And I wondered why he was standing there going, wait, what the hell?
Yeah.
Come back here.
Remember, I'll come back to the ring.
Yes, yeah.
I forgot.
He got on the microphone and said, I dare you to come back here.
The finish was so great that here I am working, and I forgot. I was so excited. But, man, that was the mark in me. Jimmy.
It made it even better. It made it even better because when you bailed out of the ring, you beat Jerry Lawler 1, 2, 3. You're a rookie in these people's eyes. And suddenly you beat the top guy. And then you bail out of the ring and he gets on a microphone and says, I dare you to come back here. And you do. Then you got guts. And then he beats a just teetotal shit out of you. And they got
oh, yeah.
But that was unique. That was unique. And you did it. The rock and roll did it too with us on numerous occasions where the entire comeback was the finish, and it worked. Our blow-off match in Charlotte, we'll talk about this in a second, but the program that we had in Charlotte, as heated as it was, the blow-off where y'all beat the Midnight Express consisted of the comeback was a kick and a sunset flip. It was the old deal where Bobby the Kangaroos thing, Bobby would hook your legs during the heat and stand you up, and he'd fall backwards and boomerang you up into Dennis's clothesline. And they did that a time or two in the match while they were beating the shit out of you. And then all hope is lost. And then suddenly they go to do it again. And Hoot just jumps over and kicks Dennis in the stomach and bends him over, and you sunset flip him. 1, 2, 3, the place blows.
Yes. But you know what? And I wanted, because you just said this is the greatest thing in the world. I was at my school Sunday taping. And that was one of the finishes we did in our tag matches. I swear to God, it was one of the finishes we did in our tag match Sunday. That was, we're taping.
the moral of the story was it not only did it pop the people, it was daring for a babyface because they're all thinking, oh, we need to get our comeback. We need to show, kick people's ass that just kicked our ass. But it kept y'all as underdogs, but you were resourceful and smart, and you managed to foil the bad guys and escape with your lives, and people loved it. It was perfect. But I've never seen baby faces anywhere make comebacks as short as you guys did and could get away with it, which was basically nothing.
Jimmy, and I'm still out here on, and it's sad. I'm still on the independent circuit because I still got to work, and it still works. Don't get me wrong, because it's not there. Because I sit back in the back and I watch matches that are all the same from the first to the 8, because now they got 18 matches. Yeah, from now and it's so hard when you go out to be the main event, and all I got to do is just start selling. I give Robert a hot tag, which only consists of 2 punches. And I'm not trying.
But they're still short. They're still short. But okay. Here's a question, because when you got into business, and once again, your story is so similar to Bobby Eaton's, because he was doing this. He was setting the ring up to get in for free, and then started playing around, and the guys saw him in Huntsville and said, "Shit, this guy's as good as we are." You guys are one of the rare breed that it was a natural thing that you can see in your head. But when you got into business, first, obviously you were just underneath single baby face, but then you started doing more tag team matches. You teamed up with, there was Ken Lucas, Sonny King, Eddie Gilbert, and Eddie was right there where you were, though, same age almost and same experience level. But who were the partners that you had I know Kenny, but that you learned, okay, now I can be a main event tag team. I understand tag team psychology. I understand how it works when we're up on the card.
Well, you know what, Jimmy, you answered that right off the bat. I always wanted to be partners with Ken Lucas. I learned so much from this, especially in Southwest Championship Wrestling, when Robert and I left, and now we're going back to the territories, because who owned the territory were heels. And that was Tully Blanchard, and he had Gino Hernandez as his partner. And going in there, young, green, I learned, Ken Lucas to me was the best baby face ever in the business. Everybody's got their own opinion, but I learned from him. I studied from him. I go back, Jimmy, and I watched some of the old matches of me and Kenny, and wow, and just thinking how he told me it's not what you do, it's how you do it. Is when you're selling. And but Ken Lucas, to me, I learned how to be a baby face from him. You notice sometimes when I do that thing and I'm shaking my fist in the air. That's
the quick fist pump. Oh yeah, the fist pump up and down and etc. Because that was the thing with Kenny. He wasn't like a Greek god type of, striking looking guy. He was an everyman baby face. He was believable. When he fought, you believed it. When he sold, you believed it. When he cut a promo, you pretty much believed it because it was kind of straight ahead.
I got
but he was genuine.
No quarter, and I take no quarter. Go ahead.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, he was genuine, and people got into it. But, before everybody had to go out wearing, peacock feathers and molasses or whatever. But, and I know, how was it working against, because at the time you were working against him, he was a heel, but Tojo helped Tommy Rich, he helped Bobby Eaton, he helped Jerry Jarrett. You got to work a lot against Tojo when he was a heel. That had to be fun and a learning experience.
Oh, gosh, it was. And, Jimmy, if... how the wrestling business has changed over years, such as, when we got to the peak with you and Bobby and Dennis, I mean, the guys that are in our business today, they can never even imagine how it was. The heat that you guys had, the way Robert and I were over. I mean, it's a whole different thing now, but nobody even knows and could even understand, is what I'm saying. But Tojo Yamamoto, he could get more heat just acting like he was reaching into his tights to get something. I mean, I watched him, and then the whole match consisted of that. And Tojo was so good, You
and the sneak, and he turned sideways and hunch his shoulders, and he'd sneak. He'd sneak up on you.
And, everybody remembered the Pearl Harbor. He's Japanese. The sneak attack. When he's getting his heat, he would sneak up on you, rake you back, and then he would sneak back to the turnbuckle over here for you to sell for him. See, and it was so good because if the heels these days would let you sell for them, the match will be so better because you see, Jimmy, I can sell one punch better than I can 47. I can sell one kick better than I can 47. But guys don't get that. Tojo was unbelievable. I learned so much for him, how important. But see, I learned from Kenny how to be a babyface, but I learned from Tojo the importance of how to sell, what selling is all about. And then if you go back and watch some of these old tapes of Tojo and Lynn Rossi when they worked on top, it's unbelievable the heat they got, and they did absolutely nothing. And it was unbelievable.
Well, and anybody Tojo worked with, because Jerry Jarrett, that's how he got over, was by selling. Tommy Rich, that's how he first got over in Memphis, was by just having Lawler kick the shit out of him and winning with a crossbody out of nowhere. Bobby Eaton, when he was a babyface, sold his ass off. And I got to say one thing though. You have a footnote in history as contradicting something you just said. All this, I can sell one punch better than I can sell 47, and etc. It is technically you are in the tree, the family tree of hardcore wrestling. Because part of this is technically your fault, because remember, we've talked about here on the show, and everybody's talked about when they did the Tupelo concession stand brawl with Wayne Ferris and Larry Latham, the Blonde Bombers, and Lawler and Dundee, that kind of started the whole thing. But the key was the one you were in, because if it hadn't been for that one, it wouldn't have gone anywhere. But you and Eddie Gilbert in Tupelo, the third one they did, which was actually the best one in terms of blood and guts. Your opponent was Mr. Masafuji and Mr. Onita, Atsushi Onita, who 15 years later.
Who owned FMW in Japan.
And 15 years later, he's like, I remember what those crazy motherfuckers did in Tennessee. We can do this.
Yes. And that, you know what? And that's a good point, because if you watch that back, good God, we were popping each other in the head with those pots, and God, laying it in. Hey, and if you watch it again, look it up. Eddie Gilbert went to pick up a big old thing of ice water to throw it on one of them, and it spilled back.
Yes.
And it spilled back on him.
It not only,
and he's dancing
the weight
in
shifted,
place.
he almost fell over on top of it.
Yeah, but that cold water hit him, and he's dancing in place, and it's so damn funny.
And that Dacum Fucci got some of the mustard jar glass stuck in his ear at one point, I think. Then he was bleeding from the ear.
Yes.
Tojo was covered up in blood. What about when Tojo started slapping old Herman Sheffield's wife?
Oh, yes. And Herman, bless his heart, he's trying not to laugh. And I'm going, damn, Herman, try to get out. I think I told the cameraman to get away from him. Do you see Herman over there trying to laugh? And
and I guess, of course, we figure that everybody out there in broadcast land knows who Herman Sheffield is. He's a world famous figure, but Herman Sheffield was the local promoter in Tupelo. And every time they did one of these, they had to promise him, we won't break the popcorn machine. And otherwise he was
sure did.
But Herman Sheffield's wife, who was about 5'2" and 250, wearing the sleeveless blouse because it was warm weather, and those grotesque green shorts with flip-flops, comes over and is going to kick Tojo and these blood-covered Japanese assholes out of the concession stand. And Tojo was...
Did you keep all the stuff that happened? Let me ask you this, Jimmy. Did you keep all the finishes?
Oh, God, yes.
For all that?
Oh,
you know
God,
what?
Yeah.
You need to write a book called Tupelo Nights. I'm not kidding. Man, I've seen so much. I remember one time was a Tupelo. That's when a big storm come through that knocked out all the electricity. So they opened the door up, and Eddie Marlin pulled his truck in to cut the lights on.
Yes.
That's because there are no lights, and they shine the lights on the ring before we have the wrestling matches.
Dutch Mantell one night, Dutch Mantell tried to slide out of the ring to chase me, and it had rained that night too, and there was water all over the floor because anytime it rained, water came in from somewhere. So as he's going to baseball slide underneath the bottom rope, I start duck walking with my leather sole or rubber soled shoes around the corner, and I walked all the way around the ring trying to get away from him and looked over, and he was nowhere. And then all of a sudden his hand came up over the apron on the other side. He had just slid out and kept going, wiped the whole front row out.
Oh, yeah. Hey, great things. You know what? And since we're sitting here reminiscing, Blytheville, Arkansas, all these places here, if people in our wrestling world that really thought they knew everything about it, that don't really know shit, they just only knew the times back then. Blytheville, Arkansas, Jonesboro, Arkansas, Tupelo Nights. That you cannot even imagine. Do you remember the real old building in Jonesboro? That the real old.
Yeah, I went there. I went there once.
Where they had they had a wash tub over the ring with a light in it, and they'd cut out all the lights, and that'd be the only lights. And the gimmick was to do a backdrop and hit that light, because when that light shook, the whole building, the light would, if the light went right, the whole right side of the building lit up.
Yeah.
And then it's real dark, and then it'd go back and forth. Man, it was crazy.
That's what guys were having backdrop contests, see if they could kick the wash tub.
Yeah, that was the whole. Ricky Gibson used to do it every time.
Oh my God, yeah. Nobody took a backdrop like that ever to this day again. I don't know how he did that. And it wasn't just high. It was his form and everything. It was.
If nobody knows who we talk about, that's Robert Gibson's big brother, Ricky. He was, God, what a natural he was, wasn't he, Jimmy?
Oh,
in his young days.
When him and Lawler, to me, those were the first matches where I saw Tennessee wrestling taking a step forward and using suplexes and etc. Because before it had been a lot of punch and kick, but Ricky was so good he could do anything, and just what an athlete. And then
Harley Race told me one time that he almost dropped a belt to him in a match. He was wrestling Ricky Gibson somewhere. And he said the match was, Ricky was so good that he had that thought of dropping the belt to him just for that night. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, just to get he could get over just pop. Like that. Yeah, just to get the pop and get the kid over in his hometown.
Yes, he sure did. You know, and that happened with me with Flair a couple of times. Jimmy, which was really good. I ain't trying to change the subject. Flair did that to me. I beat Flair a couple of times with belt, because he got that pop.
There weren't all the camera phones in those days to record these things.
Yeah, it sure wasn't. I did. Because we'd had such great matches. He said, "Hell with man, let's do, man, bam, and get that pop." Jesus Christ!
But that was a thing that the old timers sometimes used to do when it was your main event guy or one of the guys that was figured in, and he was having a match where a new talent or a younger guy was really getting over. Then you could change that on the fly. If you had to pull, everybody couldn't. But if somebody who had to pull was in there, sometimes they would say, Ernie Ladd did that with, the kid. Help me out, Brian Last, the Hispanic kid in Los Angeles. Was it Chavo? It may have been Chavo.
Chavo Guerrero.
Yeah. Anyway, he's in there with a guy that's a foot shorter and 100 pounds lighter. But the people, I think it was Chavo.
3 foot shorter.
Well, yeah, but the people were so behind him, he said, fuck it, and he switched it. And when they said something, he's like, I got the kid over for you. Now let's bring it back. And that's sometimes the way he used to do business.
Jimmy, that's what a lost art that you just said, and I'm glad you said that. It's like Ernie Ladd had to be 3 feet taller than Chavo. But you see, they were such great workers. They can make the people believe anything. And are you there?
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm just listening to you.
I'll tell you another person who was like that was Dennis Condrey. Dennis was such a great worker.
Yeah.
God Almighty. And I'm going to say this. In our Louisiana, me and Robert were young. We were green baby faces. We were green baby faces who was put in on the top position, which a dream come true. And Dennis was in that ring, buddy. He was directing traffic all the time. And everything. I got to say that Dennis Connery was one of the big reasons that Robert and I got over. Because
I've mentioned that I've mentioned that here recently. Just that it's good to hear you say that because Bobby obviously had some experience and he'd been in the business a while and his work was tremendous, but he hadn't been that many places and he wasn't an assertive guy. Whereas Dennis he'd been a main event with Phil Hickerson. They'd worked in a variety of places. So the midnight, he was the team captain and the heels were calling the match.
He was our angle captain.
Yeah. So basically those matches it was Dennis's psychology and Dennis calling it basically and keeping track of everything. I mean, everybody was doing their shit, but that's something that a lot of people don't realize when they look back at those early matches that sometimes and rightly so, they always say, oh, Bob Eaton was so great, which he was, but Dennis was the guy that was, like you said, he was like our cab dispatcher. He was pretty much keeping.
Yeah, he was the coordinator, buddy. He was the coordinator of everything. He was back there, and the business has changed, Jimmy. Back then we did kayfabe. Back then we never dressed together, especially for Bill Watts and most of the things. And you 9 out of 10 times you didn't even get your finish till you got in the ring. I'm serious.
I remember one time I got mine about halfway through the match. Lawler was still deciding, but go ahead.
Oh yeah, and did that, because we did a lot of, we could be walking to the ring, Tommy Young go, oh, by the way, y'all going Broadway, or well, thanks for telling me back here to back, I can call my wife and tell them no, I'm just kidding. But then, and you didn't, we had slang language. Tommy Young say, or hey, let me ask you while I'm here on line, because I'm thinking of referees, what happened to Jack Howell?
I do not know. That's a name I hadn't heard or thought about in ages.
I was watching some Southwest, and I see him on there the day. But what I'm saying, our slang language that say, Tommy Young, Hill's gonna fuck y'all tonight. Okay, and that's okay. Yeah, but we called it in the ring.
Well, let's talk about this for a second, because Charlotte, North Carolina was the scene of your greatest triumphs. Actually, I think of all the Rock and Roll Express mania through those years, you guys were more over in the city and surrounding area of Charlotte than anywhere else, Carolinas or anywhere else. It was just crazy. And that's one of the records that we set as teams together that I was most proud of. And there's a point to this, but I will mention it in a second. We had 4 matches in Charlotte. I'll bore the people with history like I usually do. February 2nd, 1986 was our first time the Midnight Express wrestling the Rock and Roll in Charlotte. And we had just done that angle where we whacked you in the throat with the racket and you bled from the mouth, and holy shit. So it was hot.
All that.
But
was this
what
on
they
a Sunday afternoon?
It was on a Sunday afternoon, because what they did that day, and this is how crazy that we were back then, how crazy we all were back then, and the kind of business we were doing. They booked 3 shows on Saturday, February 2nd, 2 afternoon shows and a night show. The night show in Atlanta was where we were taping the first ever TBS primetime wrestling special, Superstars on the Superstation, that night at 7:30 or 8 o'clock or whatever. But that day, we not only had a show in the Charlotte Coliseum, a 12,000 seat arena at 2 o'clock in the afternoon, but because that's when Angelo Mosca was running that big show in his hometown, Hamilton, Ontario, at the big Coliseum, he got Flair and Dusty and the Road Warriors on his show and drew 10 or 12,000 people in Hamilton, Ontario at 2 o'clock in the afternoon. And those guys took a private plane back to Atlanta to do the TBS special that night. And we were in Charlotte 4 hours away by car. It was an air traffic control problem or some type of winter storm of that show in the Omni not ever even happening. That's how crazy they were back in those days. But so that afternoon in Charlotte, without Ric Flair, Dusty Rhodes, or the Road Warriors, just the Rock and Roll and the Midnight on top for the tag title, and then Arn and Bull underneath, and Magnum, I believe, Magnum and Barbarian and Garvin and Tully. So it wasn't that strong a card. We sold out. We did 12,000 people, $101,000. It was the all-time record gate in Crockett's home city to that point in time. And we come back 3 weeks later to the day we come back again. This time Flair and Dusty are on the card. Dusty was sure of that. But we worked with you guys again. The first time, y'all went over on reverse decision. The second time, y'all went over on disqualification. We did another 12,000 people, another $101,000 sellout. We come back 7 days later, the next Sunday afternoon. 7 days later on March the 2nd, and we beat y'all in a 2 out of 3 falls match in front of 7,000 people and $73,000, and then came back on April 12th for the blow-off where I was in the cage above the ring. Another sellout, 12,000 people, another $101,000, and they closed-circuited it to 1,000 more people down the street at the Park Center and down in Spartanburg. So 45,000 people for 4 shows and almost $400,000 in 1986 in a period of 9 weeks. Was the Midnight Rock and Roll in Charlotte. And it was impossible to hear yourself in the ring. When you guys got to the ring, the people would scream nonstop from the time that we started until the time it was over with, no matter what was going on. You guys were the Beatles.
At our time, rock stars that didn't know it. But you know what, Jimmy, you just said, when you was above the ring, man, I never forget. And I'm glad some of the old matches we had, especially in Louisiana, when they put that strap on you and they lifted you above the ring,
God damn,
pinching your balls. And hey, and the whole time, because I loved used to mess with you, and you're up there, F you shooting me, bird. Well, give me that, go home, go home.
Yeah, well, they were so cheap. They were I'm in a straight jacket, but instead of putting me in a cherry picker, and they didn't have the cage, so they put me in one of those harnesses that they lower people out of the helicopter, right, or make the air rescue. And they got me. I'm in a straight jacket. I can't hang on to anything. I'm in this harness. I'm 20 feet above the ring, and my legs are going numb. And I'm looking down, screaming, "Go home! Hurry up!"
Was that Houma, Louisiana, where that happened?
No. Homa's the one where I was at a straitjacket, but I wouldn't go out unless Grizzly sat next to me because I was afraid people would stab me. But it was in Charlotte that night when I was in the cage over the ring that while they were lifting me up, Hoot jumps up. Yes, Betty Lou the cage. Hoot jumps up on the top rope and swings off of it like Tarzan. I'm going back and forth like the tub in Jonesboro. I'm going back and forth.
You're cussing Robert from the top of your voice. I was, man.
Okay, that's how it's going to be. I thought we were friends.
You can't. You see what and I know we're having a podcast and we're talking about it, but the people that are listening, just imagine. Just imagine and putting yourself in our position, when you got 12,000 people screaming to the top of their lungs, Robert swinging you in a cage, but just that feeling, Jimmy. You remember?
Well, I know I had PTSD from being swung in the cage.
No, but I'm just talking about the feeling of just going to the ring back then. Oh my God, the part of going out and creating an hour match. Just right off, like you said earlier, right off the fly. But we see each other so much that we knew what we were doing. And Dennis could change the story. And I'm not just saying that because Stan Lane was a remarkable on his own. I told him many times before, I said, Stan, if I was a girl, you'd be all in me. He was pretty, but I love Stan. Man, at the time, it was none of my business. It's still none of my business. I don't know. But we had to replace Dennis. And boy, they could not been a better pick in the world to replace Dennis Condredge, no other than Stan Lane. Man, what a...
it was easy to make that transition because Stan... He was a tag team guy too. He had worked so much in Memphis. He not only knew all of us personally, knew our shit, but also he understood the philosophy and the psychology of tag team wrestling. He got it, and he'd been a fan when he was a kid. So God,
he was so good though.
It's the mindset that helps guys transition into different spots if they know the concept of the whole thing. And so Stan was.
I got that. But I want you to listen to here because I was wrong one time before, and this happened to us again. This is when we was in Smoky Mountain Wrestling, and Stan left. And you had Tom Pritchard as the heavenly body, and you brought this guy in the room, said, listen, this guy's going to take Stan Lane's place, and here's a redheaded guy with one tooth missing.
Chucky.
I never seen or heard from him in my life. Jimmy Del Rey, and you're going to go, this is going to pay. I'm thinking to myself, holy shit, what is he thinking? And I'll be done. And then a couple of days later, I stepped in the ring with him, and right when I locked up with Jimmy Del Rey, I ate every word that I said. This guy was phenomenal. He was unbelievable. I couldn't believe how good of a worker he was. And I never heard of him before.
Well, and that was the great thing is that back then it was still possible. Jimmy had been working in Florida for 10 years or more, but he had put on some size. He was painfully thin in his early days. But, it was possible then for guys to really be good and have experience and be veterans, and you could bring them in with a new gimmick and a new fresh coat of paint out of nowhere because everybody hadn't seen everybody. And Jimmy, but like you said, you can tell as soon as you lock up with somebody, you can tell. But Jimmy could do everything. Yeah. He just had never, had that opportunity. And Kevin Sullivan, when I told Kevin, I said, Stan's retired. He said, I got a guy for you, Jimmy. I can't do Kevin, but
yeah, I got you.
Hey, tell a story real quick. This isn't even related much to wrestling, and also we are on tape, so if you don't want to tell it, we can edit. But I get a kick every time I hear it, and it's funny in hindsight now. But do you want to tell the story about the time that, like I said, you guys were so over in Charlotte, and the Rock and Roll Express were household names in Charlotte. And there one day you're sitting there watching TV and there's Tully Blanchard talking about you in Charlotte.
Oh, yeah, I don't mind saying that. This happened another time, too, Jimmy, with another guy. It was Tully, my wife was, she's turning religious, Connie, my first wife at the time. And Tully Blanchard's going to be on there. So she wants to watch it. And so
what was it? It was 700 Club or PTL
700
Club, whatever. Yeah, that they shot all that stuff in Charlotte.
Yes. Yeah. Yes. And I'm sitting there and I don't know. Just for that day, I was off. Don't know why. Don't know how I done it. Don't know. But I'm sitting on the couch with her and brother comes on the TV there. He go, and they're talking about him. He says, yes, I remember all the nights. Not me and the guys, but me and Ricky Morton with all and all the different ladies every night. Holy shit. I watched horns grow out of her head. Matter of fact, I just did a forward flip and laid it in the floor. That's all. I mean, what else can I do? Cover me, drop the elbow, 1, 2, 3, dig the fucking hole and throw me in it. But let me tell you,
he went on for a while, didn't he? All the debauchery and the drugs and the women and me and Rick.
Yes. I mean, this wasn't 30 seconds. It was, it led up to 15 minutes of this shit, and then boom. But let me tell you another one, Jimmy. It's a guy over here in Kingsport that used to make my videotapes for me, and on Facebook he went as the wrestling dude. So I hadn't heard from him. I've been trying to get some tapes, and I'm watching the Predator show, okay, To Catch a Predator. And I'm watching that, and all of a sudden it comes on. I went, well, damn, there's Dustin. And the guy, and he had a bad, he was crippled. And then the guy comes around the corner and catches him, and he's shaking his leg, and he's asking him all these questions that are fucking horrible. Tell the girl not to wash or bathe for a month and all this stuff. And then they go, by the way, how did you get the name Wrestling Dude? He goes, oh, I work for Ricky Morton of the Rock and Roll Express. Hey, I'm screaming at the TV. I'm throwing. Well, you damn idiot. You know what? He's still in penitentiary, too.
Hopefully.
Yeah, well, look here. He got 15 years in Kentucky, which he got the 15. He served his 15 years, but they found all the stuff on his computer in Tennessee, and he got another 20 years here.
Okay, I thought you meant they sentenced him to 15 years just living in Kentucky, not actually in a prison, but he's in a prison in Kentucky.
No, he's in prison for 15 years there. But what I'm trying to say is, I work for Ricky Morton of the Rock and Roll Express. Shut up!
Hey, and ladies and gentlemen out there, if you have a crime in your past and or anything you want to just blurt out, if you've been with Ricky Morton when something bad's happened, please let us
mention my name. I was with you. What the hell?
Hey, you guys had a match that I had forgot. I think I had heard about it and I've forgotten completely about it. And somebody tweeted about it a few months ago or whatever, but I would have lost money on this. I had forgotten that you and Robert actually had a match with the British Bulldogs at one time.
Yes, we sure did. Kansas City, Missouri. That was for Japan. He ran a show in Kansas City. And what people don't know about this, is, Jimmy, you've been to Kansas City in the wintertime? It snows so deep you got to climb a tree to take a shit. It's 10 below zero, and we're in that old memorial building.
The Memorial Hall in Kansas City, Kansas.
Yes, it's and it had heated it in 50 years. Here I am back there, and I promise you, I got a hat, gloves with a long fur coat on. When they played my music, and I come out of that damn thing and went to the ring, and I could never warm up in the match. I think one time Davey Boy slammed me, and I felt like one of them cartoons that just broke into a million pieces. I mean, I couldn't, and I never, when you're working in our business, you got to break that sweat to get going real good.
Yeah.
Hell, I couldn't never break a sweat. Yeah, my God. But you know what? We had a good match with them. actually, to be so cold, and which they are from Canada. They were used to it. It didn't bother them a bit, and
what was Dynamite like to be in the ring with? Because he was just so intense.
Oh yeah, he was Dynamite. But with Jimmy, that was the time when the boys were the boys. And what I mean by that, and if nobody understands this, is that one time that when the boys depended on each other to make a living, okay, and that's really hard to explain because that's not even in the vocabulary of a wrestler these days. So it didn't, he let you know that he could probably whoop your ass, but we're going to have a good match.
But then he didn't. Yeah. Well, and that's the thing.
We're going to have
people will think, why the fuck were the British Bulldogs wrestling in Kansas City for All Japan? And it was a taping. The Kansas City territory had hosted the thing, but it was a taping for when Baba used to bring his guys over to America, and we were on the shows a bunch of times. They'd tape in Charlotte and different places, and they would go back and show it on their TV.
Yeah,
and it made his stars big.
World travelers. Yeah, world travelers.
Were the Bulldogs, because they had to take care of their Japanese spot at that point. So that's why I was wondering whether there was any issues or not.
Well, you know what? No, Jimmy, because if there was an issue, I know the finish will go on Broadway. And Jerry Jarrett said this to me one time. Never forget this in Memphis. I was wrestling Killer Carl Krupp. And no matter what you did to Krupp, he'd sell his ear. You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
Okay. So I went to the ring with him, and I'm going to beat him with Schoolboy. And he didn't want to work with me. He didn't want to. Every time I grab, that's my sore arm, that's my sore leg, this is my sore knee. So I said, hell with it. And I started calling spots for him to cover me. 1, 2, I kick out. 1, 2, I kick out. This went on forever. Then finally I got up and small packaged him 1, 2, 3. Well, I'm walking back, and Jerry Jarrett's standing right there by that big door in Memphis. You know what I'm talking about when you get back to the dressing room? He's standing there, and he pointed that finger and told me to come here. I walked over to him. He goes, I don't guess Krupp wanted to sell for you, did he? I says, no. I said, well, I don't know. I mean, I ain't saying nothing. He goes, he hit you with 97 finishes, and you kicked out of every one of them. He goes, and you got up and you beat him with a small package. He goes, you're the smartest son of a bitch I ever met in my life. He goes, I need to put the world belt on you. Right. And I just busted out laughing and walked back in the back.
I haven't thought of Killer Carl Krupp in ages. Come to think of it. A name from the past.
Krupp, is it Krupp or Krupp? I don't know.
Krupp, I'm not sure. He was always croupy. He was a very ugly man. What a gimmick, that face. It was $1 million face. No humans look like that anymore.
When Lawler first brought him into Memphis, he was over. But he's like all that. Once you get to Memphis, you don't ever want to leave. He stayed there for 40 years, I think, didn't he? But it was the time, and yes, man, it was great. He unbelievable. But I was just saying that came up, but with the British Bulldogs, we had no problem with them whatsoever.
Who were you
get into us? But beg your pardon.
Go ahead.
But when you get in a problem like that, you could always solve it. You know what I'm saying? If you know what you're doing in a ring, you don't got to be tough. Just got to be smart. That's all.
I was just going to say, we've raved on about the Rock and Roll Midnight matches enough, but who were some of the other teams that you and Hoot really liked working with? I know Tully and Arn, obviously.
You had the Four Horsemen. The Four Horsemen, and they kept, every month they'd bring a brand new horseman in. The other one, because at that time when you had the new horseman, you had 47 tag teams to work with. So they kept changing the horsemen. No, it was cool. I love working with Arn and Tully. I love working with, and Ivan and Nikita. God, they're the ones that got us over in Charlotte. And it was that's another thing. Right place, right time. Leaving Louisiana, coming there, the All-American boys again. See, in Louisiana, it was Nikolai Volkov and Barry Dorso. And then when we got to Charlotte, it was Ivan and Barry Dorso. We would have many hour Broadways with them too, getting ready for the Midnight Express. Well,
and that was another thing that Dusty did really, really well when he debuted you guys. He had built the Russians up, Ivan and Khrushchev. They were the world tag champions. They'd beaten everybody. They'd had these great matches with everybody,
including Dusty.
Yeah,
you know
and
that.
Then here comes the Rock and Roll Express, and in your first night in at TV, you have the main event match with them on television and beat them for the tag team title.
58 minutes.
Yeah,
TV
it was the whole show of the program. But it shocked people because that wasn't done off. That's why Dusty did it, because it wasn't done often, and it wouldn't work if you did it often. But in that case, a top team didn't get beat by brand new stars like that in their first appearance. It didn't happen. And that boom, that started your chain of, fuck the comeback. Let's just get the finish, and boom. And it's a popping out. And you left the heels with so much because you didn't beat them up.
Well, first. Jimmy, and I try to tell guys this, and I think you might agree with me too. I do, I have a wrestling school of Morton. And when I got that, but see, when they come in there, the first thing I got to do is to make you understand what our business is about. And that's saying a mouthful right there, because guys do not understand that your match is not about your match. It's about the finish. If you could tell the story to your finish, and I tell guys this all the time, especially when I do seminars out places, different areas. I said, tonight, when your match is over, instead of you going to ask your girlfriend that tells you how great you are, or your best friends that say you throw the best Hurricane Corona than the other 8 matches before you, go ask somebody you don't know if they watched your match. Okay. And all they're going to remember is the finish. Who won or who lost. If you got screwed, or if you didn't get screwed. And I'm serious. You ever thought about that, Jimmy? Oh, really? Yeah. I said, go ask somebody else besides your girlfriend or besides your best friend. Because, if you go out and watch, that's why I don't watch the matches no more. Guy want me to watch the match. I can hear it to tell if it's any good or not. Because I go out there and it's like I'm watching Andy Riffett reruns. Every damn match is the same. They do the same high spots, the same stuff. So hell with it. I just go to the back. That's why it's so easy for Robert and I to tear a house down, because we go out and grab a headlock and like, damn, I ain't seen that tonight.
Well, but now who are some of the teams that you guys like wrestling these days? Because once it's been 36 years now officially, it was 34 at the Hall of Fame. So I'm keeping count, but 36 years as a team now. And you guys, I've seen you have some good matches with the Heat Seekers. Who's some of the teams that you like to work with these days?
Well, hey, most of the time, Jimmy, it's a mystery match. You know what? You know who I actually love to work with? I mean, it's George South. I love to work with George South. But, we work with a lot of different guys, especially at big time wrestling. They always bring somebody new in, but the Heat Seekers, they're a great tag team. And a lot of them I don't know, Jimmy. I mean, you're asking me a question that
well, hey,
I don't know who they are.
I know one team you haven't been able to work with because they're incarcerated right now. But do you watch the Revival?
Oh, I love them boys. I know them boys. Yes, I love to work with them boys. We could have some Midnight Express matches with them. You hear me?
And hello? I don't know why. Sometimes people can't, I guess it's just experience, but they can't see what we see when we look at a particular match involving guys like that. I'm seeing no wasted motion. Everybody knows where they are. They're always in control. They know where they are in the ring. The timing is good to take people up and down. They do the little things. And
the little things that mean something. See, Jimmy, and all the little things make all the big things. And it's really hard to explain that a lot of times. I do, like I was saying, at my school, I have to do a lot of talking. But most of the time when I'm talking to them, I'd be better off talking to the damn wall because they don't understand a word I'm saying. But see, that's things that you can't teach. Do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Workers like the Revival.
But I always try to point it out when you see it in the wild like that. When you see somebody actually doing those things, then you can say, look at that. And then sometimes people see it, but sometimes the fans don't. Sometimes the boys don't.
But see, I'm an old man.
There's those little things that nobody does these days because it's a matter of polish on your performance. It's just a step above.
And nobody's polished on the independent circuit, I promise you. I mean, unless they've been there before. But you see, it's just like me. I watch and I know I'm 62 years old. I know, but I still dream too. But you see, with the revival, Robert and I could have a hell of a 20-minute match with them and entertain the people really good. And that's saying a lot, because I'm not out here. I'm not, I don't want no run nowhere else. I'm too old. There's other guys.
Maybe just a walk. How about another walk?
Yeah, that. TNA called me not long ago, or Impact. And, and one of the guys asked me, wanted me to make the TV show. I says, you know what? It's a great compliment. Thank you. But please give it to somebody else that wants to live their dream, that are sitting out there. And I did that for a compliment, Jimmy. I'm not out here looking for a big run. I'm not. I still depend on the wrestling business to make a living. But that's not my thing. I don't want to come on your TV and do something like that. You need to get somebody else to do that. Do you understand what I'm saying to you?
Yeah, I believe me. There's definitely
there's some other young kid that hadn't slept, that wouldn't sleep for 2 weeks knowing that he's coming to be on your TV show, just waiting for one chance. And there's a lot of good ones out there that they hadn't had that chance yet. I see a lot of them, but then again, I see some that's got about as much business being in the ring as me flying the space shuttle. You hear me? So,
well, hey, you talked about your school, but it's the School of Morton. But if somebody wants to find out more about it, is there a website or a thing, a tiny URL or anything?
Well, Jimmy, I know a lot about that.
Okay.
Yes, guys, you just go on my Facebook, School of Morton, SOM. Come get you some, man. Jimmy, right now when I started my school out, Jimmy, I'm serious. My first night, nobody showed up. Okay, then I started out with one student, and since then, I had a homemade ring. But since then, we have got the whole building, tore all the walls down. Matter of fact, we had to tear another wall down. We're renovating right now in the School of Morton. We got 4 wrestling rings. We do live YouTube shows. Sometimes you don't get the best previews, but you know what? It's not there for nobody else. It's just for my students. And they do good. Chase Owens of the Bullet Club is one of my guys. He trains
I know
down
Chase
here.
Is very good.
Yes. And, David Cash, I help David out. But I have a great thing down there. And then on Instagram, if you want to check me out, the babyface Ricky Morton. And then you like that, didn't you?
I like that.
You need to get the real heel Jimmy Cornette. Jimmy, I never forgot when Jerry Jarrett told you, he goes, if you can get as much heat with the fans as you do with the boys, we're going to make $1 million. You think I thought that was funnier now. Because the guys didn't know you then. Boy, you did have a lot of heat.
I've kept that over the years in a variety of places. Wait a minute.
What?
You're on Twitter too, though, right? I don't want to forget about that. Or are you?
Oh,
are
Twitter,
you tweeting?
Yeah, Real Ricky Morton.
Real Ricky Morton.
Real Ricky Morton. And I sure do. But one thing I do want to say to you, Jimmy, and I watched a lot of things in my life, but over the years, it's just watching and thinking back. The best time I ever had in my life in the business. Now, you're listening to me?
Oh, yeah.
It's when I worked for Smoky Mountain Wrestling. That was the best time in my life in the business because even though when it come TV time, you was a little hectic, I've been called a sumbitch more than once.
I was just a little tight, just a little wound up.
Yeah. Are you GDMFer? Jimmy's called me that a couple of times.
Well, we've since gone back and discovered that I realized I usually hadn't slept for 48 hours before any time you ever saw me at a Smoky Mountain television.
Yeah, most of the time I just laugh. You cuss me out, I just laugh my ass off.
Well, that's true. That's because you didn't sleep in all of the 80s anyway. So
yeah, you know what? I told somebody the other day. I said, from 1986 to probably 1990 was a good year.
Yeah.
And what? But no, I wanted to tell you that I enjoyed myself. I think the people ought to go. The people ought to go on Smoky Mountain Wrestling and watch the finish of the Loser Leave Town, Rock and Roll Express, and the Heavenly Bodies' greatest finish, I think, ever in the wrestling business.
That was my favorite.
But you had to understand the build up to that finish. We built up for that finish for 6 months, and that was so great. To me, you might be a real asshole, but you're a genius.
I thought you were going to say I might be a real asshole, but I'm your asshole. And I'll say one thing about that finish.
You're my favorite asshole. You hear me?
That finish of that match in Pikeville that night, that's where the babies went in the air. That's one of those magic nights where you could see the babies go up. It was a good one.
Jimmy, when you shot that video, when Robert was already there, and then you shot the video, the boys are back in town. Holy shit, man! From the end, man, it was great. I tried to tell the guys, man, enjoy right now, because even though you're going to get to a point where I hate wrestling, no, you don't hate wrestling. Right? You love wrestling, and you're always going to love it. Okay.
One of my favorite deals we did, I'll say this, and we'll wind up. We'll get that babies in the air on the way out and get out while the getting's good. But one of my favorite deals was with Al Snow in Johnson City, when y'all did that angle where he gave you that leaping pile driver and we called the ambulance. Once again, the pile driver was illegal, obviously, to create some danger and some apprehension about it. And then, of course, it was an angle between Al and Glenn Jacobs, Unabomb, and you and Robert.
We have Glenn Jacobs. Is that the night he came up from the bottom of the ring?
Yeah, well, we had Barry Buchanan actually in the Unabomb outfit, so that Glenn could come up from under the ring and people could.
Yes.
There's two of them. But anyway.
Yes.
Finally, Al gives you that leaping pile driver, boom, and you're out, and everybody gets run off, and we called the ambulance and had the ambulance actually come and pull in the back of the building. The people stayed. The women on the front row were crying. There were guys out in the parking lot waiting for Al Snow to come out so that they could get a hold of him. We had to send the police out to clear the parking lot, and that was in 1995. It's not like we're talking about the 70s. It proves that if you appeal to people's emotions and present them something that there's enough thought put into, there's no holes in the logic, and it looks good, and you present it as such, you can get them emotionally invested and you can make them believe it. And there was women willing to cry because you took a wrestling maneuver, and there were guys willing to go to jail to get even with the guy that gave it to you. So that was a pretty good piece of business that night.
And my wife, Andra, was coming in the ring and was squalling, crying.
Oh, yes. That made it because the people, since she's from there and you guys that were living there at that point, the people knew who she was. She comes in the ring and falling.
Yes. Oh,
and they're like, oh, shit.
Yeah, but Jimmy, that was business when business was business. Okay? And that wasn't some goof that thinks he knows everything about our wrestling business and don't. That was how you put something together and made it real.
Did you have the urge to afterwards get on Twitter and thank Al Snow for the wonderful match?
No, I sure didn't, buddy. You know what? Kayfabe, bro. You know what? And it's hard. I still kayfabe. I still do. Every time, a lot of times, when I first see you, even at these Comic-Cons,
sometimes,
I work my way to you.
Yeah.
I do. And I do. I work my way to you because nowadays, somebody the other day, we did a thing. A guy won a trip back in the dressing room, and he was going, "What's over there?" And I said, "Fuck, man, these guys got better finishes than you do. Shut up."
But hey, one of these days when you work your way up to me at one of these deals, I'm going to surprise you and I'm going to whack you with that racket again, start the whole thing all over again.
You know what? And we'll sell out too. Look here, you have to call 911 to get me out of the building.
In the trunk of somebody's car, probably. That's
all right. That's me. I sell it. Hey, Jimbo.
That's Jimbo. Exactly what we're going to do. I'm just going to say we're going to start over again and see if we can get another 35 years out of it.
Well, we're going to do the gizmic for Marvin Ward.
Kayfabe.
Do you know? I was going to ask you at the end of the match to hit me with the gizmic and put the hizzy all over. I'm speaking Carney on the fucking telephone. Excuse my language. Do you hear what I was saying?
Yes, but I have a feeling. But don't worry, all the rappers know what you're saying now too.
Yeah, I got you. No, but I was going to have you to, have you beat the babyface thing and turn hell on me. Hit me with that damn racket and put the belts on the Barbarian and Mean. I thought it'd have been great.
They can't have the belts. They can't have the belts.
Well, I mean,
We're discussing something that was going to happen, but ain't going to happen anymore. But the fire marshal overruled it. But anyway, thank you, Ricky.
Boy, I'm telling you. Hey, listen to me. I want to tell you, thank you for having me on your show. It's not only an honor, it's a pleasure. It's even to be around you. Thank you, Jimmy, for all the years. And in my world, they're not over yet. I'm still in my prime. I'll see you down the road. Okay.
And hey, thank you for being on the show, and I love you, and thank you for being part of my life too. And it's just you're about to kill my gimmick, so I'm going to cut you off before I sound any nicer.
Yeah, I know it am. I know it are, you asshole.
Hey, fuck
bye,
you.
Jimmy.
All right, we're out of here. Goodbye. Hang up the phone. We'll see you next week on the Jim Cornette Experience. Everybody, thank you. Fuck you. Bye, everybody.